I don't think she is who you think she is.
I'm just trying to protect you.
You're smothering me!
Your obsession with Daniel has to stop.
Hi.
If you heard my side of the story, you would see it differently.
Miss Robin Wright, ma'am, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast.
Thank you.
I was so excited to see this film. It's the show. It feels like a film because we go on such much of a journey. But to see this show, to see you were a part of it, to see Olivia was a part of it. And I love that it's a part of your directorial journey that you've been on since Land. So I'd be curious to talk about when you got the pitch for the show or when you decided to work on it, and how early on did you know that you wanted to be behind the camera as well as acting in it?
Well, this is now, to date, it's about 4 years since the whole thing began. And it was during COVID.
Mm.
And I was on Zooms with the Imaginarium production guys who offered, do you want to come, create the style of the show, the tone of the show, and direct the pilot? And I said, yeah, because I read the book and I could see a show in there. I could totally see it, being translated to screen. And because it had so much relativeness, i.e., everyone's got a different perspective and a different critique and a different opinion. And it's so heightened right now in the world because of social media platforms, especially, everyone's a judge. And I thought, why don't we just bring it down to reality and be like, we're like this all the time anyway, as people. We misperceive or we perceive, and then they misperceive what we were. I didn't mean that. Well, you said it in this way. Oh, I didn't mean to, We have a window of time when you get greenlit to get that show cast.
Mm.
Otherwise, they move on to another show and give that money that would have been yours for financing to another show that's ready to go. It's fully cast. They've written all the scripts. We had one script and we had no actors and we had no Laura. So in that little window of time, I was offering it to women. They were unavailable most of the time. They were doing something else. They loved it, but, and that window was closing and closing. And me and my other producers just said, they said, what do you want to consider playing Laura? Because you already know who she is. We've been talking about her for months. We've all read the book and dissected it. And I was like, well, if we're not going to be able to do the show and it has to be, yeah, let's do that.
Mm.
And then that's one less person to direct. You know what I mean? We'll save time. So we just said, okay, let's move forward that way.
Wow. That's
how it happened.
I just have to say it. Maybe I'm putting too much in it, but I feel like that's just like Southern ingenuity. Be like, well, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'll just do it now because there's no other way this is going to get done. And I do
No, you
love
know what
that.
it is? It's almost like the Rice Chex commercial when I was growing up in the 70s. You probably have heard of it because it's iconic. And the little kids sitting at the table with Rice Chex, and people are like, I don't want my thing, and they're like, give it to Mikey, he'll eat it.
Well, you did eat. So let me say it. Like, actually, that's tea. Because you did eat in this role. Like, I'm going to, since you brought it up, I wanted to kind of talk more about your directing, but I will just say you are so incredibly terrifying and fierce in this, but also just like, I don't know what the other word of it is, just it's like you go through so many of the gamuts. How hard was that? Because we spoke to Laurie and he said that you were like a conductor, that you were so good both as the director and the actor that you could dial your performance and give him a note in the dial to where he didn't even need you to tell him what you were doing. And he said it was magical. So bring us inside that magic, because he said he did it. He's like, she was doing that like coverage as a director. She was trying to get something out of me, but she wasn't telling me as the director. She was telling me as the actor, which was even better. So how do you do that besides just being awesome? And how did you sort of...
Maybe it's just being a control freak, because I was like, I need to get that one beat. Oh, I need it. And so the only way we could do it, because we were racing the clock all the time. And as per usual, you never have enough time to make the movie, to get all those shots. Oh, we had to cut that scene out of the script because we just didn't have time in the schedule.
Mm.
And that was time saving to do it while the cameras were rolling And I could kind of manipulate them by giving them a different reaction than what they would expect from my character to get them to have a different reaction back.
Wow. Yeah. Well, he said it was, again, you were doing it again out of necessity, but he said it was so masterful and it was so great for him because it just meant that like cameras were, to your point, always rolling. And he was just like, he never got out of it. I'm curious for you though, because you're talking about this and you're being very cavalier with this. That's a hard day. So, how did you sort of balance that? Because, again, you've been doing this acting thing for a very long time, but like being in a creative force, producing, directing, and acting in it, that's like a really hard day at the office. So, how did you keep yourself sane through the demands of what you had to do, where you are literally, calling cut, then you got to go change your costume and do something, do whatever else you have to do on the actor side?
Well, the truth is, you're only as good as the team you have around you.
Mm.
There's no way you could just do all those hats without having great departments and great department heads. And I got blessed with really great key department heads who came with their incredible team, whether it was
Yeah.
production design, the DP and all of his gaffers and his, everybody was stellar. But your most important relationships, as the tight knit family members that you have to have as a director and an actor when you're in front of the camera and behind the camera, is you have to have the same vision as your DP. And he and I just clicked the day we met, and I was just so pleased to have somebody where I knew he got my vision and he had the same vision, and we could execute it together.
Wow. I love that.
Right? Having really great relationships, and my AD Marco, just amazing. My production designer, where I had the trust and the faith. Like, you guys go do the work. We've already talked about it. You go do it. I trust you. And they delivered. And I had an incredible cast who are all real pros. They're experienced working actors. They've been on many a set and many a stage. And I could throw a note at them. Camera's still rolling. I'm off camera. Laurie or Olivia are on camera. And I'd go, just keep rolling. And I'd throw a note. And I'd go, do it like this. And they'd do the take.
Wow.
And I had so much to play with in the edit. Instead of calling cut after each take, which is what you do when you're being directed by a director and you're just an actor in a scene, you call cut, they look at the take. No, let's go again. We're going to do it this way. That takes so much time out of your day. And I was just like, guys, because I'm in it with you and I'm in the scenes with you sometimes, I'm just going to be directing you and just hold for 1 sec. Laurie, remember what we talked about yesterday about the, let's do that. Okay, ready? Keep rolling. It was such a fun collaboration because everyone was on board and everybody knew how to collaborate and every idea was welcomed into the room. I was like, bring it on. Everybody bring their ideas and let's see which one fits best. And we would all decide collectively which one works best.
Love that.
It was a hoot. It was definitely hard work. I'm going to take a break for a minute now. I'm like, it was a lot.
Well,
It was 4
the
years.
Emmys may have a different say in that, but I get you're not going to be directing. I'm like, well, I don't know if you're going to get that much of a break, but one thing I do want to ask you about, though, because you do talk about this cast and like Olivia Cook and Laurie, but then there's also so many incredible people. The man that plays your husband, and I did not read the book, and so I was coming to all of these characters as you were sort of introducing them. As an actor's director, I would love, and I know it must be like picking through your children. What was your favorite moment in Video Village where, like, when you saw that, and we don't want to spoil too much, but you were like, girl, cut the cameras. That was it. Like, what got you giddy when you were watching it? If you could
Oh my
preview that
God,
moment.
Jacqueline, every day, every scene, there's a moment like that.
Do you have
Because
one, though, that you want to highlight? I know it's hard,
you know
but I
what?
wanted.
In general, and this starts in episode 1, I didn't do a chemistry read between Laurie and Olivia.
You
They were
told me
both
that.
in different countries. She was on Game of Thrones. What's the
Game of Thrones, you're
House
right.
of
You
the
got it.
Dragon? Sorry, House of
Yeah,
the
House of
Dragon.
the Dragon. Yeah, yeah.
Laurie was off somewhere making a movie. He was going to arrive 6 minutes before he had to start our show. That's the life. They bumped into each other in another country. I'm sure he told you, and they hit it off immediately like buddies. When I put them on camera together, because we didn't have any pre-rehearsal time before they met each other doing karaoke, and they both texted me the video of them doing karaoke, and I was like, oh, it's great. It's great because it's platonic. They're friends. They were both in relationships. They are in other relationships. Their chemistry on camera was mind blowing.
Yeah.
So what else did I need? I had that, and they got along. They really dug each other, and they giggled all the time. They turned into 12-year-olds between cut and the next action. They were like little kids. Um, all of those were gifts to me.
I dig that. No, I love
Yeah.
that a lot. The other thing I definitely kind of want to talk about is the fact that you did talk about these production heads. And again, I didn't read the book, but the art is as much of a character. And I would say like those moments with like the picture frames and then the artist sort of like thing of it, I think is so interesting. I'm curious where you all found those moments because they're big character moments, like the liar and the way that she talks about that one piece of work. And like I don't know, I feel like the art part of it is a huge like side character in this piece. How did you find those pieces and how did you create them?
Huge. And you're so right. It is a character. So if we start in prep, before that art is built, you start in prep, you're dealing with the production design, which is Neve Coulter, who I would love to work with for the rest of my life. She's just amazing. And she's bringing you ideas as a director going, what do you think about, you see the color rose in the paint or the plaster in the Sanderson house, and it's all over Laura's office because the child that she lost is called Rose.
Mm.
That was her first baby. So you get these little crumbs of beautiful heart metaphor that Laura has chosen to keep Rose in the house. Whether it's hues or pictures that are framed or the sculpture that she puts in her garden, that was a tribute to her baby Rose, right? Then that's when I'm able to say to Neve Coulter, who brought that to me, and I'm like, great idea. I love it. Go for it. Then she goes off and does the palettes and hires the artists to paint the paintings. They're in the gallery. And then she comes to me and she goes, one of the guys just said that the writer had come to them and said, what if there's a cigarette burn in the eye and it says liar? I'm like, great, great. So to work with all of your team, they're bringing you stuff, magical stuff to add to what's already there. It's just more icing on the cake.
And it was a good cake.
Mm.
We didn't really talk about it, but the girlfriend is basically these two women who are on opposite sides of this young man who, in my opinion, does a horrible job of telling either one of them the truth. You know what I mean?
He's too
His
scared. He's
Yeah,
too
girl.
scared to tell him.
As he should be, because these women
Right,
are a
right.
force, is the best I can say without giving too much. So he has this very charismatic, sexy girl who just sweeps him off of his feet and becomes in this very quick relationship. And then this long, sometimes inappropriate relationship with his mother. These two things kind of come to a head. And I loved watching that sort of like delicious bit unfolding. But a lot of that I know is built in the edit. It's built in what you show early versus what you show late. How did you go about that? Because I feel like whatever Everest you climb to get this shot and pre-production and then do it, then tweaking that was like another Everest on top of it because you really don't want to give too much away before you give it away.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Well,
what you
how was
do,
that Everest and how did you do it?
well, I mean, it feels like you're summiting Everest without oxygen, but when you're shooting, get as much as you can get. And I did because I had these pros that were like, I'm right here. Throw it at me. And they were like sponges. And they'd give it to me and I'd be like, great, I got it. Move on. Because I was editing in my head that you just described of where am I going to put that? Ooh, maybe that's going to go in the other perspective. There was a lot of very intense prep with my DP about how are we going to shoot Cherry's perspective in this episode? How are we going to shoot Laura's perspective? We wanted those to be different because when you're in the person's perspective, you need to be in here, seeing them feel and observe something they don't like, something they like, something they're fearful of, right? And then the other person's coverage is going to be wider, where you see the whole environment and mom pretending like everything's okay, but it's really not because you saw it in this. So we mapped that out first, and we mapped the other stuff out in the editing room. We put up cards, as everybody does in the editing room. You do index cards, so you get all the scenes and the description of each scene. But we had not only each scene, we had the dual perspectives of each scene. Episode. So we would sit there and say, let's go back in the file of Cherry's perspective footage. How many angles did we shoot? What size is it? And let's pick and see if there's something better from her coverage that was supposed to be over there and put it in Laura's perspective. We did that all the time. So we got to build the tension and the little crumb drops and then keeping you on the edge of your seat by withholding certain things that normally in the script you'd think, no, you should have given it all. No, it was better just to give them a little bit and keep them wondering who is telling the truth. Who does that viewer believe is in the right? And you flip-flopped all the time as a viewer.
Facts. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Again, I was glad that I didn't read the book for that expected because I mean, just jaw floored. Which folks, if they haven't seen it already, they're definitely going to understand. I would be remiss if I didn't say I've been a fan of your entire filmography and so many different things, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing with you. I'm sure a lot of people come up to you, talk about The Princess Bride, about Forrest Gump, but I want to know the movie from or the TV show or something that you've done, or House of Cards, obviously, that when people come up to you, you get a little bit of a giggle because it's not one of the greatest hits. It's maybe one of the deep cuts that you're like, look at you knowing about that one. What is the one when someone comes up to you, it tickles you because maybe it's not one of the, the singles, as we would say. This is like a deep cut B-side.
Totally. It's two, actually, that were really fun characters to play, and they were far out, and maybe 12 people saw each of these movies.
By the way, I have some names, so I really hope this is one of mine. So go ahead.
Okay, you want me to go first, or are you going to
Yes,
go?
I'm going to let you go first, but I'm going to let you know that I'm not playing. I'm doing this with a mission because there's one of yours that I have. A couple of them, actually.
I would say White Oleander and Private Lives of Pippa Lee.
Ooh, okay, so White Oleander is one. Because Star was something else because I love White Oleander. I loved that movie in general. And I just felt like the way you did that was just so fun. I'm a Southern girl. Like I'm from Alabama and Texas. And I was like, I know stars. I know them.
Let me tell you something. I'm from Texas, and that's where I drew from. I've met those women. But yeah, when people come, I'm like, I love that you done that and you saw it because you're like the 11th of the 12 people that saw it.
I love White Oleander. It's such a good movie. And because I read that book, I loved that book.
Isn't the
Janet
book
Finch.
amazing?
Yeah, so
good.
The one that I also have is Adore. You and Naomi in Adore. I love that movie because it's a horny little dramedy, and I loved it. I loved how messy it is. And when I was watching The Girlfriend, it reminded me of Adore. For folks that have not seen it, that is a movie where two women are best friends their entire life. They both have sons, and then they both end up in affairs with the other one's sons. Messy. It's so
messy. It's so messy. You know that was a Pulitzer Prize winning short story by Doris Lessing. Mm-hmm. When I read that short story, I was like, I could totally believe that would happen. The way she writes.
Yeah.
That's.
I love that. Well, we're going to get out of here, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. Again, I saw Land at Sundance, and I knew that maybe this was going to be your journey. And I love that you continue down as a director. But as a director and somebody that I know you're probably watching things all the time, what's something that you've been watching recently that you would like to recommend to folks? Because as I like to say, we think that recommending movies is how we show love to people. And I know you probably have been watching good stuff. So movie or TV, what are you watching? What do you want folks to check out?
I just started watching 2 nights ago, DTF St. Louis.
Everybody's telling me about this now.
Oh my God. I can't wait to binge it tonight and tomorrow night. I can't wait because I've been doing this stuff. I was like, I can't wait to get to episode 2. It's really well written, and the actors are just, and I love the way it's shot. It's got some real quality depth of the complications of marriage, fidelity, um, commitment. You know, you're married to the same person for 25 years, you have kids, you're sleeping with that same person, and you're monogamous. I'm not going to tell you anymore, but it's so true. People go through this a lot, and it's just interesting, and it's very smart. It's very smart the way they deliver the information, and the way these two guys, Jason Bateman and the other actor is fantastic, are friends, male friends, and how they talk about what they talk about.
I dig it. Well, that's a great recommendation. I appreciate you so much for being here, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Good talking to you.
So what do we do now?
Do I have to meet the parents?
My son always had girlfriends, but I have never heard him speak about anyone like this.
Darling, she is going to love you.
Laurie, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
So I will admit, I actually came to The Girlfriend first on TikTok clips before I actually sat down to watch it. And immediately I was like, what is going on here? So I wouldn't say that I was spoiled, but I knew that you were caught in between some very dynamic women in this whole situation. So I'd love for you to talk about signing up for it, because in a lot of ways, it's crazy to think how much these two are fighting over you in this story. Like, you are literally everything that sort of puts it there. And it says it right there in the title, The Girlfriend.
The Girlfriend, yeah, exactly. Well, look, I'd read the first episode and loved it, and I was struck by Daniel and Cherry's relationship, and how, quickly and they just it was written so clearly and so brilliantly how forcibly they fall for each other. And then I met Robin, and yeah, it was such a great meeting. And we did the scene a couple of times, and then she just like chucked the script on the ground and was like, let's just riff, let's just improvise, mother and son. And that was then the majority of my audition. So yeah, all the prep went out the window, and we were just back and forth, just spitballing.
Really?
And actually that kind of process really fed into shooting as well. We would often, do the scenes, especially with Robin, those Laura and Daniel scenes. We would shoot them, and then she's like, all right, we got that, let's try something else. And we just quickly throw in different dialogue and see what worked and what didn't work. So it was a very fluid process. And then on the flip side of it, with Olivia, I'd seen lots of her work and was a big fan. And then after I was cast, because we didn't do a chemistry meeting or anything like that, but she was out I was filming in Gran Canaria, and she happened to be out there at the same time visiting a friend who was on the show I was on. And we met, and we're like, oh, we're going to be working together. It was very surreal. And we got paired to do, we were at a karaoke bar, and we got paired to sing a duet together. And obviously I very chivalrously let Olivia choose the song, and that was my downfall, because she picked Celine Dion's All Coming Back to Me Now, which I didn't know at the time. I was like, I don't know that song. And she was like, of course you know that song, everyone knows that song. I genuinely didn't. She didn't care. So we were up at singing it, and I was out the front of the karaoke bar just like YouTubing it, trying to learn it very quickly. And she crushed it, and I was in her wake. But yeah, it was it was a fun way to break the ice and get to know someone. And yeah, Dan, yeah, but in answer to your question about, it was really interesting being caught between those two, and his allegiances changed throughout the show. And I think what was quite nice is that Daniel is almost seeing it through the eyes of the audience, in the same way that they start to align with one character, and then their rug is pulled out of beneath them. There's the same for Daniel, and shooting it in those dual perspectives, depending on whose POV we were in, I got to stretch. I would be, for example, in Cherry's POV, I would be, much more of a mummy's boy with Laura, and really lean into those elements that she finds repulsive, and is giving her what we'd call the ick. And then in Laura's perspective, be very hands-on and tactile, overtly, so that she's even more threatened by this new partner who's not really showing her the respect that she would like. So yeah, caught between the two, and they're the kind of guiding beacons. He's clearly drawn to strong, powerful women.
I don't want to put it too much out there because again, the show goes so many different places over the course of it. And like I don't want to rob any audience member that haven't seen it of like the
Yeah.
emotional journey that you get to go on. But the one thing I will say is, and you don't get this in the first episode, but they're the same woman. And not to be Oedipal about this, but that's something that I think you can kind of you play into it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like it's weird how eventually we maybe realize these women are more similar than we think.
Yeah, I think quite often, that relationship with the parent of the opposite gender to what you are is often a really kind of significant factor when we're choosing if you're in a if you're heterosexual, then you're kind of, that's often a significant factor, and parents in general. And it often goes that way, that they're quite similar, or it goes the opposite, and then you choose someone that is completely different to your parent. But it was certainly something we thought about a lot, and wherever possible, to try and, without overdoing it, play into the audience's mind of there being a slightly incestuous undertone. And in the first episode, I thought it was brilliant, and that scene where it's set up like the person that jumps into the water you think is maybe Laura's lover. That was obviously very deliberate, and we played around with levels, of take it to the point where it was too much, and then bring it back, and then Robin had those to play with in the edit to just find that sweet spot of how far you can push it before it's too much. Yeah.
I listen. That's got to be, you're not that far out of drama school. That's got to be a nice call when they're like, hey, going to be acting alongside Robin Wright Penn, Jenny, it's Buttercup, no big deal. Did you have a little starstruck moment about it? Or I know y'all are just trying to be about it, the actors on set, but like the Princess Bride is like, it lives in people's memory in a different way. I think if you even told someone in your life you were working with her, they were probably like, come on now.
For sure. I mean, yeah, but obviously, her reputation and her body of work is so impressive, and but she's so normal in when you meet her in that way, the side of it which is not work, she's so approachable, and so that any kind of, I guess, starstruck element was quickly fell away because she was just so approachable, and especially because she was also my director. So that relationship has to be very open. She's the person I'm going to. She's my guide, and so I think it is a slightly different relationship when you're than with a fellow actor who doesn't necessarily. Everyone gets on, and I've been lucky enough to work with some, brilliant, especially women. I work with Julianne Moore on a show,
Yeah.
and Kate Beckinsale, and Michelle Yeoh just recently. So I keep getting to work with these incredible powerhouses, female powerhouses of our industry. Very lucky. But I think because Robin was my director as well, there's a different vibe. So that, she to let the actors in, and yeah, I'm just so grateful for that experience, and to be directed by an actor who's also in the scenes was such a cool thing.
Is
Because
that the first time you've done that? Where you've
yeah,
had a director actor pair? Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And Robin did it because I didn't know how it was going to work, and Robin did it so well and so just seamlessly, and she would be able to direct me in the scene in real time,
Mm.
in almost I keep saying, like a conductor conducting a violinist or something, or an opera singer, because it's instant. She doesn't have to wait until the end of a take. She can, if she's behind the camera, she can alter her performance to get something slightly different out of me, which was so fun and so cool. And yeah, she's awesome. You don't need me to tell you. She's wicked, and I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to work with her as a professional, but also just a person.
Well, your work in it is pretty amazing. Like I said, I just compare it to, like, again, I'd seen you in a couple of things before this, but it's such a difficult role because so much of it hinges on how these women play off of you. I'd be curious what you found to be the most challenging aspect of playing the character. First of all, there's the dual perspective. I mean, part of the movie you're in a coma. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Or like, incapacitated, I guess. And like, it's a lot, you know?
I think the most challenging thing I had, honestly, was, look, when you play a character, you have to love them, and you have to be fighting their corner. And I think when I first read the script, I was so angry at Daniel. I was screaming at him, like, what are you doing? The fact that he's met this woman that he's totally in love with, but he's not, he's stuck, and he's being a coward. And in fact, both the men in this story are quite, you know, cowardice, and they're not sticking up for what they believe in. Howard doesn't really, played by the amazing Willie Zueta. He doesn't stick up for what he wants. He's kind of that paves the way. It's so easy to kind of vilify Laura and Cherry, but they're only doing that because, in a way, that no one's telling them that actually, Daniel and Howard are not really saying what they want, and they're taking
Mm.
a path of least resistance, which is it's a bit pathetic. So I struggled, I think, with that, and finding my path through that. And I think what anchored me was just the love that he has for these two people, and he's just caught. He wants to make it work. He can't let go of either of these women, and yet they
Mm.
can't really exist in the same space. But I certainly was frustrated with Daniel at times reading the
I
script.
think you're being kind because you played him so brilliantly, but like, tell me the truth. If that was your mate and he was recounting this, what would be the Lori like? Be yourself. What would you say to him?
Oh, I
Because
mean, I would have, I would have, no, I won't say bullied, but I would have given him so much stick for years. The fact that he's got to 27 and years old, and he's not been just abused verbally about his frankly infantile relationship with his mother is, you know, yeah, he's certainly needs a bit of a talking to. Yeah. And
you're
actually,
being so British about this. We Americans would have been like, son, call
yeah,
him in.
yeah, pretty much. And you'd call him out. You'd be like, it's just weird, dude. Like, what are you doing? But I think ultimately, when, when there's trauma in a family, as he cares about his mum, he can see how much she's been affected by the loss of her first child. That complicates things, he's had to step up in a way and not just
Mm.
be her son. He's also been a friend and a confidant, and where Howard's not really that relationship is fractured. So it's not a usual mother and son, parent and child relationship. So it's complicated.
To
And
say the least.
yeah, yeah.
I did mention this earlier, but you're in another show that just came out, and I am a person that reads Pride and Prejudice every single year. It's one of my favorite books. I know a lot of girls have probably told you this, but I found that show also to be just incredibly brilliant. And I loved seeing the difference in the two. I think if you ever were going to have a year to be like, you want to see some range, kids, let me tell you, the Playboy and the Mama's Boy, I can give them to you right there. But talk
Yeah.
about, have you felt the love? I mean, maybe not for Mr. Ryder because he's quite cad-like. But
Well, do you know what? It's funny you say that because it's funny you call him a cad because I originally when I started on the other Bennett sister, my instinct was that he would be a cad and that we're so attuned to having a kind of the foil for Mr. Hayward's like pure, sweet natured heart would be someone who has it all and actually turns out to be a bit of a rogue. And I was definitely my gut and my instincts were going to be to go down that direction. And actually the team were very good at steering me away from that because they said they were, and it's true. It's more interesting actually for Mary to have two really good options. It makes her life much more complicated. That actually, look, he's certainly more free spirited and, but I don't think he's trying to mess her around. It's not
he's not Wickham. I'm not trying to say
he's
that.
not Wickham.
But we
He's
come from hand holding and such and such. So any proposition like that, we're like, sir.
yeah, he's a kind of yeah, he's a sort of modern thinker, but who hasn't really thought it through from the perspective of a woman in that time. It's very easy for him to say, let's all be free and, let's all live in kind of polyamory. But it's a very different prospect for Mary who doesn't have that kind of freedom. Yeah, it's easy to be idealistic when you're coming from a place of privilege, which he is because of his financials and also his gender. So yeah, but he's well-meaning, and that's what's quite nice. I think they've both got Mary's best interests at heart. Yeah, I just don't know if even if he's got the attention span of a gnat, so he's moving at a quick pace.
That is very true.
He's not a safe bet for Mary, that's for sure.
Facts. I was screaming at her, don't. But she's a smart girl. She got it. She worked it out. Spoiler alert. That one is easier to guess, though. It's Austinish. The only thing I was going to ask you though about it is I feel like I've heard this from the folks I interviewed for Downton Abbey. I hosted that podcast, and they all said this. People in Britain will walk across the street to tell you that they didn't watch your show. Like they'll walk across the street if they watched your show, and people in America will walk across the street to tell you how much they liked it because like Brits don't congratulate. Have you felt the love though on the other Bennett sister? Because it was so loved over here that before it got here, the American fans were mad that the Brits got it first and like that we had to wait. So like I hope have you felt the Austenite love? Because I do feel like if they like you, they'll tell you.
Do you know what? I'm not on social media, so actually the first I kind of got a sense that people were really loving the show. I got invited to a like a coffee and cake morning with some of my mum's friends, like probably like 30 or so women of my mum's age to raise money for a charity. And I got there, and about 6 of them turned around and just called out, "Mr. Ryder's here!" And I was like, "Oh shit." Like this is a thing. And I just had no idea. I turned up with my 3-month-old daughter, expecting her to be handed around the room, but to be honest, I was handed around the room more than she was. And I wasn't I had no idea of the love that was going around, because I guess, not being really online, I was a little bit in the dark about it. But it's been lovely. And I'm so glad a show like this, which is it's got a lot of kindness in it, and is doing so well. I think so often we think we need people to be horrible to each other for it to be entertaining, and to keep audiences watching. But actually, Mary is played by the insanely talented Ella Brugler. She's such a compelling character, and it's such a compelling performance that we just get to be a fly on the wall with her and get into her mind. And even with the characters that are traditionally hard to root for, she sees the good in them, and so we do. The Mr. Collinses of the world usually just, you don't have
A
much
joke.
good to say
Yeah.
about them. But actually, because Mary has got such a big heart, and she just sees what's good in people, and I love that about the show, because it's so true. We should all, even the people that you can't find much to like sometimes in life. There's always
It's always good.
some
Yeah.
humanity there.
Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on both shows.
Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you.